What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG TCG video. Today, guys, we are going to be going over the new G Golem archetype that is set to release in Animation Chronicles 2022. So, throughout these last couple of days, I've been going over the first batch of cards for Animation Chronicles 2022. That includes the Royal support, the Dino Machine, Houseberry, whatever support you want to call it, which I've already done videos on and will be linked down in the description below. But there was one other batch of cards that was announced in this big batch of cards for the first reveals for Animation Chronicles 2022, which was the G Golem archetype being introduced into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Which, if you are a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, then more than likely you know this deck, as this was the deck that was used by the Earth Ignis in Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. So we're actually finally seeing one of the other Ignis finally getting their decks printed into the OCG and TCG. The only Ignis that has his cards printed was and his at Ignisters, and now we're finally getting Earth with his G Golem. So that's very exciting, and I'm very excited to be going over this new archetype with you guys and just going over all of the G Golem cards that we're getting in Animation Chronicles 2022. So far, we might get another card revealed at some point, who really knows, but this is the initial batch of G Golem cards for the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So with all of that out of the way, this introduction is long enough. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. So as per usual with these card game videos, I'll go over the monsters first, then the extra deck monsters, and end off with the spells and traps. And the first card that we got is G Golem Rockhammer, a level 6 Earth Cybers effect monster with 1800 attack and 2400 defense. And you can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. If this card is in your hand, you can discard one other Cybers monster, decrease this card's level by 2 until the end of the turn, and you can tribute this card, special summon 3 G Golem tokens, which are Cybers Earth level 1 attack 0 and defense in defense position. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except Cybers monsters. Just gonna say this right now, this card is really good. I mean, this card just by itself is a Link 3 monster basically on its own. It's a one card Link 3, which is insane. And if you're able to do a combo with something like Dotscaper, where you discard Dotscaper, decreases monster's level by 2, then you can bring back Dotscaper since it was sent to the graveyard, and then you can normal summon Rockhammer, tribute it, get your 3 tokens, and boom, you Link Climb into like a Link 3 or something like that, and then Link Climb again into a Link 4 monster, and boom, that's an access code talker right in your very first turn, and it's that easy. Like, holy crap, this is a really solid card. The fact that it can just generate tokens very easily, and yeah, it's a hard once per turn, but who cares? That's a very easy way to get tokens out onto your field, so that way you can go into a high Link monster, you know, a Link 3 or a potential Link 4 monster. Like, my god, for, you know, the first card in this video, the G Golem deck is off to a very good start, because G Golem Rockhammer is a really solid card, and I do think this is a good start for the G Golem archetype. But with that being said, let's go into the next card, which is G Golem Pebble Dog, a level 2 Earth Cybers effect monster with 300 attack and 1000 defense, and you can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. If this card is normal or special summon, you can take one G Golem Pebble Dog from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon it. Also, you can add special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Cybers monsters. And if this card is sent from the hand to the graveyard, you can add one G Golem card from your deck to your hand. So, another pretty solid card in my opinion. This card actually is another Link 3 summon, because you can summon Pebble Dog, get another Pebble Dog and special summon it, go into Splash Mage, then use Splash Mage's effect, bring back one of your Pebble Dogs, and then you can go into a Link 3. And kind of going back to the Rockhammer example that I was having with Dotscaper, you can do the same thing without Dotscaper by just using the 2 tokens, go into Splash Mage, bring back your Rockhammer, and then you can still go into Access Code Talker. You're just going to have to use the token maybe for like a Lingaribo or something regards that, maybe a Salmon Great Almirage or something like that. it could still work to go into a Link 4 access code talker. But this card being able to go into a Link 3 monster is pretty nice. And the second effect, not really as useful for the time being, because obviously, you know, this is a very new archetype, and there's only 2 main deck monsters and 2 cards that it can really search, because I know there's a spell card that we'll discuss a little later on in the video. I don't think you can technically search it because this card doesn't state that it has to be a G Golem card with the text reading G Golem on it, so I think the only card you can search is either Pebble Dog or Rockhammer for the time being, but this effect will get a lot better when we get new G Golem support in the future. That's really going to boost this second effects a lot more, because like I said, you can only search for Pebble Dog or for Rockhammer, but still, it's not honestly that bad of an effect either. And overall, I really do think this is another pretty solid card for the G Golem deck. But with that being said, that's going to be it for the effect monsters. Off to a good start, so let's see what the extra deck monsters bring to the table. So kicking this off for the extra deck monsters, we have G Golem Stubborn Manhire. I think that's how you're supposed to say it. A Link 2 Earth Cyber's Link effect monster with 1500 attack, and you can only use the effect of this card's name once per turn. If this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can target 1 Earth monster in your graveyard that can be normal summon set, either add it to your hand or special summon it, but if you special summon it, its effects are negated. Also, banish it when it leaves the field. So this card is pretty interesting. It basically is a way to be able to continue your combo. You know, you can maybe add like your Rockhammer or your Pebble Dog to your hand, and then you can go into the combos that I was mentioning earlier in the video and basically do it in a different way. Like with Rockhammer, you know, you can get maybe your access code talker onto the field in like a Link Karibo or Lingaribo or something like that, because you'll actually have extra cards that you can use, because you can use 2 tokens for, you know, Splash Mage or something like that, or even like another Link 2, go into Access Code Talker and use the other token for like a Link or Link Karibo. And then like Pebble Dog, you can do the same thing with like Splash Mage, bring back a Pebble Dog, and basically do the same combo. The only thing that I will say is a downside with this card is it only works when this card is summoned from the graveyard. That does hinder the card quite a bit in my opinion. I felt like this card would have been so much better if you could just do it when it's just summoned in the field and not specifically when it was from the graveyard. But it seems like this card is more of a card that you would use to further your combo later on in the game, which is nice, but I would have really liked it if you would have been able to do it from when it's summoned onto the field. So overall, I think it's just a okay card in my opinion. Probably the weakest card that we've gone over so far in this video. But with that said, let's go into the next card, which is G Golem Crystal Heart, a Link 2 Water Cyber's Link effect monster with 0 attack. And you can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. You can target 1 Earth Link monster in your graveyard, special summon it to a zone this card points to, and if you do, place 1 G Golem counter on this card. An Earth monster co-linked with this card gains 600 attack for each G Golem card on this card. It can make a second attack during each battle phase. Also, if it attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. So this is a very fascinating card. So you can Monster Reborn back one of your Earth Link monsters to your field. It gains 600 attack for each G Golem counter on this card, which will gain an additional counter every time you special summon back a Earth Link monster. So if you have 2 counters on this, for example, you will gain 1200 attack, which is pretty nice in my opinion. It can make a second attack during the battle phase, and it can inflict piercing damage. So if for some reason your opponent is trying to stall to try to get to a card, you're still going to be able to put a clock on them if you have Crystal Heart on your field. The only issue that I have with this card is that it doesn't have any protection to it, because the issue with this card is that this card is going to be an easy target for your opponent. I mean, this card has 0 attack point. It can't really do anything. So this card is just going to be sitting duck. So unless you have some ways to protect Crystal Heart, this card is just going to be eaten alive by your opponent, because they're always going to try to go after this card, because they don't want you to keep this card in your field, because if you keep it on your field, you're just going to be able to keep recurring your monsters. So you're going to basically have to play King of the Castle, where you're going to have to try and keep Crystal Heart safe, so that way it doesn't get destroyed by your opponent. And if they end up destroying one of your other monsters, monsters that you summon via Crystal Heart's effect, you can just bring it back and be able to get another G Golem counter on this card, so that way you can gain even more attack points and be a more threatening monster. So that's a little workaround that you have to go in regards to this card, but besides that, I don't think it's really that bad of a card in my opinion. Again, it's just more to the issue that this is going to be a primary target for your opponent to go after, because they don't want you to keep recurring your monsters. So that's going to be a major goal with this card, is just to try and keep it protected from your opponent. But with that being said, let's go on to the next monster, which is G Golem Invalid Dolmen, a Link 3 Earth Cyber's Link effect monster with 2800 attack, and you can only use the effect of this card's name once per turn. Your co-link monsters are unaffected by monster effects activated on your opponent's field. Your opponent's monsters must attack this card if able. So that answers my question from earlier on how to protect Crystal Heart. You just summon this card back from your graveyard. So there's one of your options right there. It's a third effect is once per turn, you can discard one Cyber's monster, draw one card, and if your co-link card is destroyed, you can negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls. Holy crap, this is actually a pretty solid card. Not only does it give protection to your other cards that are co-linked to this card, but also it has to be attacked first. So if your opponent wants to go after any of your other monsters on the field, it must attack Invalid Dolmen, which if this card is destroyed, it's able to negate all of your opponent's cards that are currently on the field, which is insane. And what's fascinating about it is that it doesn't have to be by your opponent. You can destroy your own Invalid Dolmen, and guess what? You can negate all your opponent's effects because this card was destroyed, so you can probably combo off very easily, not having to worry about, you know, some type of disruption on the board. So that's pretty nice. And you can discard a Cyber's monster from your hand and draw an additional card, which is pretty nice in my opinion, especially if you're able to load up your graveyard with like a graveyard effect or something like that that can help you on later on the duel, or if you go after, you know, the aforementioned Dotscaper I was mentioned throughout the video. Send a Dotscaper from your hand to the graveyard. Not only do you draw one card, but you get a monster on your field to go into even further plays. So overall, honestly think this is a pretty solid card. It gives your protection to your monsters, especially for the Crystal Heart example, and it's able to essentially negate all effects if it's destroyed, which is very easy to do, especially since you can cause it, and you can get a additional card if a card you're not going to be using in your hand and is better in the graveyard. You can get that card to the graveyard and draw an additional card. So overall, pretty nice card in my opinion. And with that being said, this is going to lead us into the final extra deck monster for this video. And that monster is G Golem Dignified Trelathon, a Link 4 Earth Cyber's Link effect monster with 3200 attack, so pretty beefy stat line right off the bat, and you can only use the third effect of this card's name once per turn. Your opponent's monsters must attack this card if able, once per battle. If this card battles an opponent's monster during damage calculation, you can send one Earth monster from your hand to the graveyard until the end of this turn. That opponent's monster loses 200 attack. Also, its effects are negated, and when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a Link monster you control, quick effect, you can negate the effect, and if you do, destroy that card. So immediately right off the bat, it has the similar concept of Invalid Dolmen, where it seems like its whole premise is basically making it to where your opponent has to go after this card in order to be able to dampen your board, which makes it another way to protect your Crystal Heart from being a target to your opponent. So that's pretty nice for that alone. You know, this is a monster with 3200 attack, and your opponent is forced to attack it, which is really nice. And hey, if they're going to try to pop out a card effect, guess what? You can negate it at quick effect speed thanks to its third effect. So that's pretty nice in its own regard. The only weak side to this card is probably the second effect. Although it's a nice battle trick, 200 attack points is not really that much, if I'm going to be completely honest. You know, if it was like 1,000 attack points, then maybe I'd be praising this effect a little bit more. But not only can you only activate the second effect during the battle phase, I would have liked it if you would have just been able to activate this like during your regular turn. I think that would have been a lot better. That, or just again make it to where where it deals more like attack point loss, because 200 attack points is not much. Now, if it was a monster that had only like 100 more attack points, then yeah, that's going to be relevant. But besides that, that second effect, I just don't think is going to be really used that much, in my opinion. I guess maybe to help you save from damage, that's really it. But again, that's only 200 points of damage that it saves you, which I don't think it's going to really matter in the long run. But as an overall card, I don't think this is a bad card, in my opinion. I think this is another pretty good card, in my opinion. But with that being said, that's going to be it for the extra deck monsters. So let's go over the final card for this video. And the final card is going to be Gravity Balance, a normal spell card where this card is treated as a G Golem card. So I was actually thinking wrong. I didn't think this card could be targeted by Pebble Dog's effect, but hey, I guess there is another card that Pebble Dog can search. So it can search another copy of itself, Rockhammer, and Gravity Balance. So that's pretty interesting. And you can only use the first and second effect of this card's name once per turn. Target 2 of your Earth monsters with the same names that are banished and or in your graveyard. Special summon both in defense position, but change their attack and defense to 0. Their effects are negated. Also destroy them during the end phase, aka you're going to use them for link material. You're never just going to keep them on your field. And if a G Golem monster you control would be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. So there's another sort of protection there for, you know, Crystal Heart. So if your Crystal Heart is going to be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, maybe you don't have Dignified Trelathon or Invalid Dolmen on your field, and you still need to try to find a way to get your Crystal Heart protected. Guess what? Have Gravity Balance in your graveyard. You can banish it from your graveyard, and guess what? It still has that protection nonetheless. So that's pretty nice from that regard, and it's just a nice way to protect any of your cards. Maybe it negates one of your big monster's effects, and guess what? You can just banish this card from your graveyard, and it's still able to protect it on the field. So pretty nice, and it can help you get back 2 monsters from your graveyard, so that way you can go into further plays. Overall, I think it's another honestly solid card in my opinion. And with that being said, that's going to be it for the G Golem archetype. So yeah, overall thoughts on the new support. I actually really like this support. Besides the one Link 2 monster, honestly, I really was impressed with a lot of these cards. You know, Rockhammer and Pebble Dog making it very easy to go in your Link plays is super nice. You know, Crystal Heart helps you kind of do some boosting effects, which I think is nice, even though it's not really necessary. I feel like the strong suits of this deck is probably the 2 main deck monsters, the spell card, and probably the 2 higher Link monsters, although Crystal Heart isn't that bad. I think the only card that's probably the weak link of the bunch was the other Link 2 monster. I just felt like the whole fact that you only can use the effect if it's summoned from the graveyard does kind of tamper with the card. But overall, I'm actually really impressed with this new archetype. Now, obviously, it's not going to be a standalone deck right now. It's just too small of a deck to really be able to do it, but I can see some of these cards being splashed in other decks. I can even see Rockhammer be just used as a standalone card, because the fact that you can easily go into Link 3 or Link 4 plays, you know, just with this card alone is really, really good. And even Pebble Dog can do very good in getting into a Link 3 monster. So honestly, I am really impressed with the support, and I'm very excited to see what's next for the G Golem archetype. What new support will we get later on in the future? Because obviously we're not going to see any for quite a while. I would have loved it this came out a little bit sooner so it could have been released in Duelist of Prioxane, which was a set that was focused all about Earth monsters, so it would have been really nice if it was able to hit that time point, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. But I'm excited to see what else is going to be in for the G Golem archetype, because if they can continue this support up, I think can be a pretty competent deck going into the future. But with that being said, that's going to be it for this OCG TCG video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the G Golem archetype. Do you think this is going to be a good archetype, an okay archetype, or do you guys think this is a bad archetype? And like I've been mentioning with the last two videos, let me know some cards that you want to see coming out in Animation Chronicles 2022. What archetypes do you want to see? Do you want to see, Lightning's deck with Armadas Legio, Storm Rider, Windy's deck, Hydrodrive, Bowman's deck? Like, let me know what decks and what cards you want to see in Animation Chronicles 2022. Would love to hear all your guys' thoughts on this new archetype and just what you want to see for this set down below. But with that being said, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.